You're live. Okay. Yeah, one more mic check.
Check. Sounds
Check.
good.
Sound check. 1, 2.
All right,
How do I sound?
perfect. Welcome back, Double Team fam. Hi, how are we doing? I'm actually really glad we're recording because I do not like this weather and it's giving me seasonal depression. But if you've been here since day one and you've listened to, one of our first 20 episodes, then you recognize Danica. You only heard her in the past. Now you get to see her.
Oh my God, that's right. Last time we didn't do video.
Yeah, it wasn't until Steph.
It wasn't until Steph that we
Yeah.
did video.
Yeah. So welcome, Danica, licensed. She's a sex therapist.
A
That's
sex
all I know.
therapist.
There's
Yeah,
a
that's
lot of
good. That's
acronyms.
good.
How are you? How's life?
I'm good. Life's been good.
How's the sex therapy world?
You look beautiful. By
Are
the
people
way.
healing?
Yeah, all the time. Actually, I've been doing a lot of sex therapy. Actually, most of my clients are sex therapy based, and they're all chilling, just
Good.
Progressing in their lives and relationships. A lot of them
glad to
are
hear
having
that.
kids now.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
More people having children?
Having children, planning on having kids. So
Wow. Are we getting to that age?
What age are they?
I guess it varies.
Are they like between?
most of them are in their 30s.
Oh,
Yeah.
what's your stance on children?
Personally, or just like as a...
Yeah, like do you want your? Do you want your
No.
own kids?
I'm never gonna have kids.
Okay, see, I think I won't have my own either, but I think I've been thinking about this a lot recently. Because, like, kids love me. My boyfriend's kids love me. My nieces and nephews from, like, my chosen family love me. And, like, they all gravitate towards me. And I'm just like, do they just, like, sense that I still have, like, a raging inner child or, you know?
Maybe kids also like people who are pretty and symmetrical. So it could be that.
They think I'm pretty!
Maybe. Kids are not my expertise, so take that with a grain of salt.
I love the way you said that. So give me
Pretty and symmetrical. That's
Kids like symmetrical people. There's studies on this.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
So they like gravitate. Oh, I have read before that it was like an article or something that said if had like 10 ways to know you're attractive, and I was like, okay. And one of them was like if children look at you a lot, and yeah, and I was like, okay, cool, but I didn't realize that.
So I'm fucking beautiful, guys.
At least in the eyes of a child.
Beauty is subjective.
I'll
Someone out there
Eye
may
of
be
the
like,
beholder.
"Meh."
I'll take it. But anyways,
Actually, that's what we talked about in a recent episode. Was Kimi and I both have more children-related fantasies recently.
Oh.
Yeah, and actually, it was interesting because we did it with Nicoletta, who's also a therapist. She does a mix of like regular therapy and I think also some sex therapy, and then equine therapy with horses. But anyways, and afterwards, she was like, "We never talked about the fear," and then I talked to her a little bit more about it, and I think that's why in my fantasies I don't mind having children, is because in my fantasies I'm like willing to face my fears, and like having children is like a big fear of mine.
So it's like a safe space to kind of work that out internally.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because, like, the thought of childbirth scares the shit out of me.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Yeah.
The only things that are like attractive about having children to me, and this may sound really fucked up and I hope not, but like the cute parts of pregnancy, you know, like when you're like,
Massive titties.
yeah, massive boobs,
Glowing skin.
glowing skin, a cute belly, and like, you know, healthy, luscious hair. And then like when, you know, your partner's there for you during the birth, and I think that's because Bridgerton has like given me this false sense
Oh
of
my God,
reality of
that
like
show.
a guy holding onto my hand lovingly as I'm like giving birth. And then when they're like 2 to 4 years old, when they're like talking and like cute, and they have like that cute little baby voice, but they're not like forming full opinions yet. And you know, you can still kind of relatively control them. Those are the only things that like appeal to me about children.
Very specific parts
That's
of
it.
being a parent.
That's it. The rest, I'm like, no, thank you. And I don't think that's enough to like warrant having children.
That's why I'm on my
fair.
auntie character arc. That's it. That's all I need to be on right now. So,
Anyways,
my therapist, I was actually, so I do somatic therapy now.
Love somatic therapy.
have you tried it before yourself?
I think my current therapist does some of it, yeah.
Oh,
But it's great because, like, I don't know, like, she's, like, the way she touches and holds me. Like it's like
Mm-hmm.
she puts her hand like on one side of my or the top of my spine and then at the bottom, and then it's just like, or she'll like hold my adrenal glands, whatever.
I actually, this just reminded me, I recently went to this like facial spa where it was like a spiritual experience because they did like some breath work and some energy work, and she did like massage techniques
Yeah.
that were just so wonderful.
Whoa,
Yeah.
where was this?
It's in Sherman Oaks. It's called Kosha Spa. I gave it like 5 stars on Yelp. I
How
was
do you
like, I
spell
need to go
that?
write about this spa because I was like splurging. And I was like, this is kind of expensive. I wouldn't normally spend this money, but I hadn't had a facial in like years. And so it's like, I'm going to do it. All the reviews are like, this touched a part of my soul. And I was like 10 minutes in, I was like, I get it.
I found it. Okay.
Oh my
Immediately.
god,
It's
I want
really
to try
cute.
this.
Well, I mean, and I think, so much stress and everything just gets held in the body. And I think it's really important to like move
Cleanse it
through
out.
that. Yeah, exactly. And that's why I really like somatic therapy. But like, yeah, she'll like adjust my neck
Mm-hmm.
and like use aromatherapy and all that. And then I leave and I'm just cleansed.
But
So-
this facial sounds
Yeah,
dope.
you would
I
like
know.
this facial then.
Okay, I really need to try it then.
See, I want to try somatic therapy, and I need to get some recommendations. I asked my therapist for recommendations as well, and I can't remember.
Oh,
if
I
she
need to
emailed them or
send
not.
you some. But what I was, now I remember what I was going to say. My somatic therapist was telling me not to have kids.
Not
She's
to
like,
have
the world
kids?
doesn't need more kids. Don't have any. I was like, okay, Melinda. Thank you.
Wait, your therapist said not to have kids. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah, she said the world has enough. I was like, I think that's your personal opinion, but I'm glad you're sharing.
Like I have so many of my couples like actively trying to have kids right now that like me personally not wanting kids. I was like, but if you want them, we're gonna make it happen.
I guess I'm surprised that people want to have children. Children are
In
expensive.
this economy?
Yeah, in this economy.
I'm also expensive, so I think the people who can see me are kind of doing okay on the financial front.
Danica's like, I'm
It's like usually
expensive.
that is not. I mean, we do have conversations about some of the finances, but usually that is not the thing holding them back.
Wait, what's the thing holding them back? Now I'm curious. You don't have to talk about it if that's like,
No,
HIPAA,
no.
but-
I think people are just becoming a lot more mindful, kind of like what both of you guys are talking about just like what does it take to be a parent and be a good parent, and like are they ready to be good partners to one another? Have they worked through their own shit? Are they willing and able to continue to do the work to not like repeat generational traumas? So I think people are just like taking their time on it, but
Love that.
Yeah, I do.
genuinely
love that
thinking
too.
through it. Yeah.
One of my friends actually said, she was like, she told her husband, she was like, I will not have children with you until you go to therapy. And so that's what she's
Smart.
It's so funny because my current partner has 2 children. My boyfriend has children, and and I actually just tweeted this earlier. Seeing him be a dad is like the most healing thing for my daddy issues.
Aw.
It's phenomenal. I'm like, he's helping me heal on so many different
I can
levels.
see that. I can see that. I didn't hold a child like a baby until this year.
What?
Like
Yeah.
ever?
Yeah, because they weird me out, so I like avoided it at all costs. It wasn't that bad.
I love holding kids.
I will say if they're babies, it makes me scared that something will happen and I will drop them. And it
Yeah,
will be
she
my
was
fault.
like almost a year, or yeah.
Okay,
almost
so
a
that's
year.
like
that's
a little,
nice.
bit
Then
bigger.
like hold their head.
Newborn,
No,
yeah,
that
and
freaked
like
me
you have to
out.
like support their neck. That's a lot of responsibility, I think.
Yeah, but that made me think of like my partner who also does not want kids. It's like surprisingly good with them, and it's cute to see them interact. I was like, great, and we don't need to sign up for that permanently, but we could do that.
Auntie vibes.
Actually, and I haven't told anyone this on the pod yet, but I did meet my oh wait, I don't know if I should mention this. Ooh, never mind.
But
Why
you just
not?
teased it now.
Okay, I'll ask him for permission, and if he says it's cool, I'll keep it in. If not, I'll edit it out. But my ex-husband has a child now,
Oh,
and I met his baby for the first time last weekend. And similar experience when I was watching him with his daughter. I was like, it warmed my heart so much. I was so proud of him, but I was like, I just know he's going to be a great dad. And it like really gave me a lot of hope for future generations, because I think men this day and age are at least somewhat a little bit more, aware before like having children and such of like their emotional state and like how to be a good father. So it gave me a lot of hope, and it was a really cute thing to witness, and I definitely got emotional about it. But yeah, so he's got a little girl. It's adorable. Yeah.
But this episode isn't about kids. I feel
It's
like
not.
we-
Yeah,
I know, we went on like a whole tangent before
when
getting
she
to the
said
point.
that most of our clients are doing that, I was like, I feel like I see a lot of people having children, and I'm just kind of like, you know, nearing my 30s and still don't like have that need. But then I was talking about this fantasy that I was having, and sometimes I'm like, okay, maybe in my late 30s I'll like want a kid, but I'm like, I think I'm gonna table it for 5 years and see how I feel then.
Mm-hmm.
I
So.
think, I can't wait till we're like still doing the pod in 5 years, and then we're still gonna be like, actually, I don't know about children, but
I think in 5 years
In
I'll
5
like
more.
revisit it.
in 5 more years.
And everyone's gonna be like, we already knew this. Anyways. Okay, actually, let me tell you about my little scenario that I wanted your opinion on. Okay. So I have a fuck buddy. And we have phenomenal sex. It's great. And last night we were hooking up.
Wait, have I heard this story?
No, I don't think
this is new for me too.
Well, it's not really a story. It's like just something that happened that I was like, I need to like unpack this because I don't know why it happened or why I said what I said. But anyways, so we're hooking up and like already came in the beginning, and then we were like switching positions, and then we were like in doggy, which is usually how he finishes. And then while we were in doggy, he like made me come again, but it was like otherworldly. I was like, it was just absolutely mind-blowing. And as soon as it happened, I said, oh my God, I do not deserve this. And then I thanked him for it. And then like we continued, and he just kind of laughed it off. But then as soon as I said it, I was like, why did I say that? Why did I not deserve this? And then I was like, and then afterwards, I just, like when we were done and I went home and I was like driving back home, I was like, do I not think I'm like worthy of a really great orgasm? And then I was like, when was the last time I had an orgasm like this? And I was like, I actually can't remember. And it was an interesting experience to say the least. And I'm curious on like if, because I'm going to bring this up to my therapist, but I don't see her for another like 3 weeks.
She's just like subbing in. Thank you. So like two possibilities that come to the top of my mind. One, like maybe there's some, just worth and value and deserving things that it just kind of came out in a vulnerable moment and you just keep working on that.
Okay.
Two, you could just be vastly overthinking this.
Which is a possibility.
Well, because like a lot of times when we're communicating something, we're not being so literal. Like you might not actually think you don't deserve mind-blowing orgasms. It might have just been like the way you were expressing, like when something's like so good.
Yeah.
That like, no one deserves something like this amazing feeling. It's just more of like a way to describe how good it was.
Yeah.
Versus like thinking that you don't actually deserve it.
And I was trying to
That's
remember.
not what I thought was going to come out of your mouth. I thought you were going to be like, I said I love you.
What?
Like, I didn't know what to think, but you saying you didn't deserve it.
I've only been having sex with him for like, I think 3 weeks. Why would I love him?
Good for him for accomplishing that in 3 weeks.
Right?
Yeah.
And on top of that, like he's...
I don't know. I'm just saying, like, what if that accidentally came out is what I'm saying,
that can happen.
I've always had this inkling since y'all started seeing each other. I'm like, I feel like they're just going to fall in love with each other. But that's just
Really? I don't think
This
so.
is like the official prediction.
Well, I don't get that vibe from him. In fact, one of the reasons that I started sleeping with him because I was like, this is someone I won't fall for.
Welcome to how many times I've said that to myself.
Okay, fair.
I'm now on your side.
Okay, fair.
I'm not
However,
manifesting on the pod. I'm just like, if my prediction comes true.
he's young. He's 25. Why would
I love that, though. I have a little 26-year-old I might see soon.
I don't know. Okay, you might be right. Like maybe I just said it because it was like so good that I was like, oh my God, I don't deserve this. But like I remember like in the moment, I had already came once and then we were in doggy because like I know that's how he comes. So then when I came again, I said that and then I was like, wait, do I not feel I'm like worthy of a second orgasm before he has his?
I think I'm on option 2 here.
You think
you're
I'm
just
overthinking?
overthinking it.
I know. Sorry.
See, and that's what I'm saying. Sometimes you just need to let things be.
I like diving into my mind though, and I like understanding why I say and do things. I'm like my favorite thing to explore most of the time. Is
I love that.
Figure out like who the fuck I am. But I was like, did this come from my subconscious? Because
It's possible. I mean, we all have to work on viewing ourselves as like worthy and deserving. And so like, yeah, could have it slipped out a little bit? Sure. But I don't know if that's any more deeply rooted than like your average person, because we all need to work on that.
I did a recent astrology reading, and I remember in the part of the subconscious, or I shouldn't say astrology, it was a tarot reading. My apologies. I did a tarot reading with one of my friends, and she was like, your subconscious is working through a lot of self-worth issues. She was like, do you think you're worthy of a partner since like you're in between like, you know, opportunities like in your career? And I remember I was talking to her about it, and I was like, I don't think so, because like, you know, I feel like I should have my shit a little bit more together before I like offer myself to someone. But then I got to thinking, I'm like, I was plenty worthy of, you know, a long-term relationship when I met my ex-husband. And back then I was, you know, 18 and had nothing to my name. So I was like, okay, I don't think, you know, I think I need to get back into that mindset of like, I don't need a career to like justify getting into a relationship. So when that came out, then I was like, is this my stuff about my,
Did you
like,
do the tarot reading before or after this?
before?
Can I just say
It might have planted that idea in your head that like maybe you latched on a little bit
Okay.
too deeply. But again, like I love tarot because it does kind of help you to see the things that are already around you.
Wait, you like tarot?
Yes, of course.
Wait, have we talked about this?
I don't think
she's
so.
witchy
No.
like us.
Oh my god!
But like it was
Why
gonna
don't we
be an
get together
obvious
and do
conclusion.
tarot? I do tarot.
I honestly have not been doing it as much lately, and I've kind of fallen out of my practice. So I'm very happy to get back into it.
Yeah, but I'll do it. I'll do it for you, with you, whatever. We can just kind of get back into it. I've been doing it for like a year-ish now.
Yeah, I did it a lot more like in the beginning of COVID, and then kind of fell off it a bit.
Oh my god, we should have brought our tarot cards. If I had known, we could have definitely done some tarot.
And I do have a new deck that I want to use.
Oh, I love
what
that.
deck did you start out with? We used the Rider Waite.
No, I did. I cannot remember what it's called, but it's like it's all like animal based.
Oh really?
I love that.
What were you gonna say? I saw your little finger go up.
Well, I was just gonna say, that was a really good point too. You saying that you think you need to like get your shit together before getting into a relationship is like a very, how do I explain it? Like that's what men do. Men are like, wait, let me get my shit together and then I'll get in a relationship.
Oh, like compartmentalizing.
Yeah.
Like
It just reminded me because I saw a meme of that the other day. It's like men will be like, let me get my you know, blah, 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 X, Y, Z in a row and let me get all of this in line and then I'll go into a relationship.
tilt
and
this
women
up
aren't
just a smidge more.
And women aren't like that. And I was like, oh, that.
It also makes me think of Queer Love because I just watched that today.
Queer Love. Oh my god. everyone's been
The Ultimatum Queer Love.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Everyone's been
Yeah.
recommending that. Yeah.
I
It's
watched
good. It's good.
one episode.
Is it good?
Don't spoil it.
It's good. I won't
like it.
say
Wait, but
anything.
what does that remind you of in the episode?
There's one of the people that are kind of hesitation about marriage is like, I want to have all my ducks in a row and have like my
Yes.
finances and all of
Yeah,
my
yeah, yeah.
things before I could commit. And the other person's like, I just want you to commit to me. Those things are important, but that's not all that this is about.
Things can happen simultaneously.
Yeah.
You're worthy just
I
as you
also
are.
love this person on that show. So I'm not going to say who it is, but I love them.
Wait, why don't you want to say it?
It's just to not spoil anything for you. I want you to have the whole experience. Because it's wild and dramatic.
I do want to watch it. Actually, the girl that I'm seeing recommended it. She was like, "Oh my god, there's this couple on there that reminds me of us," and I was like,
Ooh, which one? Did she say the names?
"No, she didn't say the names."
Okay, dang it.
Yeah.
Wait, yeah, it's funny because she's talking about my boyfriend's wife, and the three of us were watching it the other day. We were like flip flopping back and forth between Selling Sunset and the Ultimatum.
I finished that one,
Queer
too.
Love one. Oh, you did? I haven't finished it yet.
But this, this whole conversation is something that we were talking about stuff with the other day. Is that like I remember when I first met my ex, I was like, I am still worthy of this love, even if I don't have my shit together. And then I got my shit together, in the duration of our marriage, and I was very successful. And now that my life has changed completely, and I'm like, well, I don't know what I have to offer someone, And then it's like when I retold her that, I kind of got back into the mindset of thinking like, well, yeah, I was 18 and believed that I was enough for someone. Like, why can't at 29, why can't I believe I'm enough for someone now? Like, even if I don't, have
you
my
have a
shit
kick-ass podcast. Like, you're a great dog mom, and you put on amazing live shows and you get your shit done.
I know, but
So let's move past this.
I know. But anyways, it came up and it just it had me wondering. I'm like, is this my subconscious still believing that I'm not deserving of certain things? But also I'm always the one that like has to, get on top and like make my orgasm happen. And this was like this is actually the first partner that I've had in a while, or I shouldn't say partner, he's just a fuck buddy. This is the first person in a while that's like made me come. And so I think to some extent also that I'm just like interesting.
Okay, that might be a little relevant, that like he kind of took a little bit of the power from you in that moment, and just like relinquishing to that felt good.
Yeah, I guess it does.
A little unexpected, but it's also, I think like this whole thing kind of swirls around the concept of just, I think like in our culture we make value and self-love this thing that you have to like achieve, which to me just feels very capitalistic.
It is, but that is capitalistic trauma.
Instead of just being like recognizing that we are already like self-actualized worthy human beings, and that is what positively contributes to our society and environment.
I like that.
I don't know if it's just because like, I mean, not that Nikki has been like supporting me all the way, since I left college or whatever. But I mean, like, she has helped me financially in many ways. But like, I got to the point where recently, I would say within like last 2 years, and especially when I was unemployed, I got to the point where I was just like, whether, it doesn't matter. All of these things don't matter. I will figure it out. I am me. I am great just as I am. And, like I found some really like, people saw worth in me whether I had a job or not. And then after going through that, I was like, okay, cool. So I'm good. Like it was just, I feel like I don't see jobs and things like, materialistic things the same way I used to. And like what I own define me.
So like attached to your own sense of identity.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's been my journey. And like, after my divorce is like, and, leaving my job was like detaching from like my very successful career, detaching from the life that I built that was very, comfortable. I had like, we had enough money towards like I didn't have to worry about anything. I could buy what I wanted, spend the money on trips that I wanted, had a house, an airplane, everything. And so it's like, leaving all that behind to like, I always tell Cami, I was like, I felt like I like spent, the better part of like 8 years building all these great things only to get there and be like, never mind, this isn't what I wanted.
Slow it up and start again.
Yeah, and then you just kind of like,
But that's the fun part about
slowly
life.
dismantle all of it. Now it's like I'm rebuilding again, and I think that's like really tested my self-worth more than I ever thought it would.
But that's then, like the fun part.
I know, but for it to like come up like attached to my self-worth in sex, that's when I was like, I'm curious if there's a connection here, and I was just thinking about it.
There could be. But also you could just be overthinking it a tad.
I know. And you're
had the tarot cards just like kind of planted that idea in your mind.
And now I'm like, okay. But I am worthy of multiple orgasms.
Absolutely.
I am.
We love that.
Even if they're not at my doing. If someone else gives me multiple orgasms, I am worthy of that.
And I appreciate that you like thanked him for that. In the moment you were like just so appreciative.
I know.
Thank you, Father.
Father?
I don't know.
I don't know where that came out. We don't need to talk about that. Well, I was going to say daddy, but she doesn't like calling people daddy. So
you defaulted to father.
yeah, even worse.
Okay.
Even worse. I don't know.
Not to shame anyone who uses that term if they prefer father to daddy. I feel
I
like
know.
there's
What
like a
if
little
it's
religious kink in there. Yeah.
Exactly. What if it's a religious father?
If they like watched like Fleabag and then just really wanted to act that out.
Okay, sorry.
If I ever said father, or if someone said father in bed, or mother, I would like probably puke.
Yeah.
Anyways.
No.
Okay, well, I appreciate your insight on that.
Now
I'm going to journal.
What? I said now to the main topic. 40 minutes later.
I'm going to journal about it a little bit more. Okay. But yeah, I did thank him. I always like to thank my partners if they like, do something good in bed. Because especially when they're younger like that, I feel like it's, like it's good to give
healing.
them, it's good to give them that like
validation.
Yeah, that they're doing a good job.
I thanked my boyfriend for this hickey. I like being marked up. I love having marks. I love it when I get hickeys on my boobs and my neck.
Yeah, but we're also filming, and so it's like, as long as you can cover it up
can't
tomorrow.
see it.
Okay. Anyways,
Just
now
a nice
on to
little
the
secret
actual
reveal.
topic. And I know we discussed this briefly when we were at happy hour. I was like, wait, where were we? We were getting margaritas. Anyways, we have a lot of people that often ask about this, and it's not something that I've been like through personally or at least like in recent, in recent times, but it does have me like wondering like in the future, like what I would do in this scenario. So it's like, you know, for example, say you are in like a current dynamic with your partner, whether that be like monogamy or vanilla sex or whatever. And one, maybe both, but you know, one of you wants to like start exploring like kink or non-monogamy or something like that. And you go to your partner and you know, prepare everything, you talk about it, you present it really nicely, and they're like, no. Because we get people that write in about that all the time. They're like, well, I brought up this and my partner was like, I don't want to do that. And now I don't know what to do. And we're in an awkward place. And like, they know now that I'm going to do this or that I want to do this. And now, you know, because they know that I want to, and now it feels, you know, so it's like, I think it brings up a lot of emotions when it's like because obviously like you feel rejected, but at the same time, then you're like, well, now what? Because they know that I want this but they don't want the same thing. So I'm always like curious, like what, you know, like how to handle that discussion, because I had to sit down and think about it. And I'm like, I don't know what
Like,
I would
what
do. And then
do?
people
Yeah.
ask us for advice and I'm like, well, shit. So I'm curious from a more professional standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, from the professional standpoint, I always like to get as in front of things as I can. So, like, work on your communication before bringing things up. Like, really work on it. Because if you're going to bring up something like new or vulnerable, you want to have a really good foundation. Realistically, are all people going to do that? Like, no. So if you did your very best and you tried, and the answer was, it kind of depends on what the answer is. If it's a flat out no, my first thought is like, we just got to be patient. And like, sometimes like when you have gone through the process of thinking about what this means to you, why you want to do these things, and then you bring it up to your partner, they have not had the same time to figure out what it means, and they might just be having like a bit of a knee-jerk reaction, which is like, this is new and scary and I don't understand it, maybe feels threatening, maybe it touches on my own wounds, like I'm just gonna say no. Like just be patient, and then see if you can move the conversation, not like necessarily immediately give your partners maybe time to process, but like come back to it and be like, hey, I know you said no, but I'm curious about why, and can we actually talk about it? And then talk about why it's important to you. I also would say, like, in bringing some of these things up, like, don't monologue at your partner. Like, here's the laundry list of reasons why I want to like open up or try this kiki thing. Go, because like that's just gonna be overwhelming. But like help guide them a little bit through the process that you took, because they now need to go through that process. It might still be a no. If it is a no, like at the end of the day, you have to respect that. And sometimes these things will reveal that there are certain incompatibilities. But like a lot of the time you can probably get close. And it also might just be like, maybe not this thing, but is there like a step along the way to like get to that thing that's really interesting? So if you're like, hey, I really want to, you know, do anal and that's really important to me and I want you to put it in my butt, and they're like, no, that feels gross and I'm not comfortable with that. Like, maybe we just try getting close to the butt first and like a little bit closer, then like toys. Like you can work up to things. People are usually just a little taken aback and they respond from like the most defensive position, not defensive in a way that's going to like, you know, blame their partner necessarily, but defensive in just like, I'm trying to protect myself and this feels foreign. Granted, if their no is like very judgmental or mean or cruel, we're in a very different type of conversation. So it kind of depends on what your dynamic is, but we're assuming generally healthy.
Well, I mean, it varies, but like I feel like a lot of time when people do ask us about it and they say that it like what you said, that knee-jerk reaction, it usually seems like that's kind of the initial, like they're like, oh my God, I can't believe you brought this up, and like they have a way negative reaction. But usually like the way they're presented to me, I'm like, oh, I think you just need to give them a little bit of time to like catch up to this.
Yeah.
And like maybe sit with it before you're, you know, before they give you a response. Because I think,
people need to just breadcrumb a little more often when it
Really?
comes to like maybe a big thing that they want to bring up to their partner. And by breadcrumb, I mean like, you know, let's say you're having thoughts of like, oh, you're reading this really spicy reverse harem where this girl has 4 boyfriends and now you have your partner, but now you're thinking, I would love to maybe explore non-monogamy, open up our relationship. Bring up the book first. Hey, I was just reading this book about this story, and then so give them little tiny hints, and then eventually work up to that grand conversation of, as you said, get to that point of hey, I've been thinking about this a lot. I really want to open up. I would love to explore this with you, blah, 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 blah. I think sometimes people, as you just mentioned, you have that whole thought process and then you have your PowerPoint presentation, but you've never brought the subject up to your partner before. And that's why communication is just so important. So, I don't know. I'm thinking about the time that I specifically remember when I was with my ex-fiance and I was reading my reverse harem books. He knew what I was reading about. I would tell him about it all the time. So he felt comfortable kind of, one night we were laying down and he was like, what are your thoughts on threesomes? And then it got, but that's all he said. That was all he said. Not that he and I ever did a threesome with anybody, but I know he had interest in it. But as soon as he said that, I just started thinking about it. And then I was like, maybe, I'll let him come to me when he wants to, ask further questions about it. But he kind of breadcrumbed me a little bit. And I appreciated that.
I always say with men, you got to make them think it's their idea, so
That's our strategy.
so it's good to, if you plant the seeds and then one day they're like, I have an idea. And then you're like, yes, you do.
Boy.
But it also, the breadcrumbing I like because it gives you an opportunity to maybe see where you would meet some resistance.
Oh.
So if you breadcrumb a little thing of oh, my friends are, just had a threesome, what are your thoughts? And they go oh my God, sluts. How could I could never. Then you could be hey, let's talk about why that was your reaction.
Exactly.
Before you then open it up to bringing you actually into the conversation.
Exactly. It's positive breadcrumbing.
There's stuff we need to work through and biases we have and societal crap. You might just want to work through some of that stuff before bringing it up yourself.
Yeah. And
I like this term, positive breadcrumbing. Because normally breadcrumbing is not a positive thing.
To me, it's more testing the waters or just positive breadcrumbing.
And you're what is it?
A little trail of
little trail of treats
chocolates.
To just get him to come
if
closer.
You actually eventually have the conversation, you can't breadcrumb someone and then just hope they magically know your desires. Because that doesn't work. That's just me.
You have reached your destination. Here's the Bienvenidos a Cuba. Why are we here? What was I going to say? For example, when you said earlier that a lot of people are having children, or a lot of your clients are, it reminded me that a lot of our friends are talking about opening up their relationships. And one of my friends, this was a couple months back, but she was I just remember she was well, that talk didn't go well. She's what's your advice? And I found an episode on Openly where she had talked a little bit about it. And I just remember when I sent her that episode because I'm I think this is a great resource. But then I was well, shit, what would I do in that situation? I haven't really put a lot of thought into it. And I guess I'm at the point where when I approach partners, I'm this is who I am. It's a non-negotiable. Mm-hmm. You can say no and peace out, So it's I think, so that's why maybe I haven't put as much thought into it. But yeah, people are always asking what to do. And I don't know. I mean,
if you think about our demographic, a lot of the times it is couples who, maybe they're not in, for example, whether they're not in open-minded cities or states or they're, in very traditional relationships, a lot of times they do come to us with those questions of hey, I want to introduce this to my partner, but they're terrified of doing that. And rightfully so, I get it. You don't want to face that rejection. You don't want to face, possibly the ending of a relationship because you have an idea. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, and I really
it also comes up on our Q&A a lot. Everyone's how can I get my partner to do this? And I'm well, you can't get them to do anything.
Exactly. I know, exactly. It's no, you got to talk about it. And I feel a lot of the times it just and I was having this thought earlier. I thought it was so profound in the car. It was a half thought and then I forgot about it. But, just, a lot of the times it's when we want to tell a partner something or we want to ask them something and a lot of times we end up going to our friends or something and we're well, how do I tell them this? And then you literally say exactly what you want to tell them, but you're asking how to tell them. And it's like, no, you're not. You know what you want to say. You're just scared to say it.
Yeah, but I think as humans, we also like, a little bit of validation before we go, like have this big discussion with someone, that, or like a sounding board. So everyone can be like, yeah, that sounds good. Or maybe like change this part.
I do that in therapy all the time. They're like, so like, this is my phrase. And we're like, let's like workshop this a little
Okay,
bit.
I do that with my therapist all the time.
Yeah.
I'll literally be like, okay, this is what I want to like say. And then we'll like literally like dissect it a little bit. And I'll be like, what, present it. And then she'll be like, well, what about this? Or like, and I think that that's like a good practice to do, because then that way, like you can, and you never know. Sometimes like you word something and you think it sounds really great and someone else reads it and they're like, this comes off as super defensive or like super
That is true.
whatever. And then so when you have someone else being like, hey, then I think that can help.
That reminds me of the other day. One of my friends, he was trying to ask this girl if she was comfortable with taking Plan B, because he was like, he didn't finish in her, but she was on birth control and he didn't know where she was at in her cycle. So he was like, how do I say this to her? And I wrote out this perfectly like great, respectful sentence, and he just copy pasted. And I was like, perfect. I did it right. And she had a great positive response to it. So.
I've definitely had times where my therapist said something and I'm like, stop, say that again. And then I start writing it down and I'm like, okay.
I've seen people like jot down notes. I'm like, it's fine. Just seal it.
Just tag your sources, okay?
I was like, but if it like sounds too not like you, that might cause some suspicion. So like rework it in your own words. That's also
true.
fine.
But what about, okay, so like say you breadcrumb positively or whatever, and then you like kind of discover some things along the way and you think maybe you're at a point where you can have that discussion and you have it and it still gets like a really negative reaction and they're pissed. And now, you're confused because you're like, well, I thought we were going to go in this direction and like I thought they were going to be like ready for this conversation, but they weren't. I guess I'm just curious, like what do you do in those scenarios?
Step 1, get support for yourself, not from your partner.
Oh.
Least like immediately. So if like you brought it up to your partner, you were like really hopeful and excited, thought it was going to go well, and then like it doesn't. They're having their own emotional reaction. Now you're having an emotional reaction. Take a breath. You go seek support from probably the people you were talking to bring this up in the first place.
Your friends, therapists, whatever, yeah.
A Reddit forum, whatever you need. I'm thinking like some of these people probably don't have a lot of support. But I lost my train of thought. I was like,
Reddit, they go for support to people for support. And
Emotional support elsewhere.
Separate, yeah.
so like they bring it up and it just goes poorly.
Yeah.
So after you've gotten your own support and can hold space for your partner again, you need to maybe work through what is likely just like the projected meaning that happened in that moment. So like when you said, I want to do X kinky act, or I want to open up, or whatever it is, and their first response was, fuck no. Then you go like, okay, well, why? And like, what did it feel like when I brought that up to you? Like, what was your instinctual reaction? It's kind of where some of that somatic therapy can kind of help if you're really good at identifying how your feelings are manifesting in your body. Like, was it fear? Was it anger? Was it a sense of rejection? Like, let's just talk about that thing first and then kind of see. If someone is like very calm and been like, hey, before you even brought this up, because you've been breadcrumbing, like I've been thinking about this and I've been researching this, and for XYZ reasons, this doesn't fit for me, then it might just be a no.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to decide if
that's a deal
a
breaker.
non-negotiable or
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
Actually, okay, what you said about when they're projecting something onto you, this actually reminded me of a recent experience. And actually, we talked about it during happy hour, but this is also another one where I'm like, what do you do? When someone, because even when I was in this situation, I found myself a little bit stumped at like how to present it to them. Because like, say for example, they're projecting like their insecurity. So you're like, let's be, non-monogamous, or let's have a threesome or whatever. And they're like, no. And a lot of the core reason behind that is the fact that they are like, maybe they're insecure and they're projecting those insecurities onto that. I guess, because like you don't want to sit there and be like, well, you're saying no because you're an insecure bitch. Like no one wants to say that, or you're insecure to your partner. Like no one wants to say that to their partner. So like, how do you go about
how do you show someone their ego?
Yeah. because I struggled with that when I faced it, and I struggled hard.
This is like therapy 101. You have to have a really good rapport with someone.
Really?
Yeah, like that is a huge part of being a therapist is you have to develop a trusting relationship with someone so that you can do that exact thing. So you can be like, I'm going to point something out to you and like, let's see how you take this. This is kind of what I'm seeing. Yeah. You have to do it in the right moment a little bit, like in it as best as you can, not like in a heat of a moment of like, well, this is because you're insecure and screw you, work on it. You would be like, hey, I've been noticing this thing, or when this thing happened, I felt that it might be related to this. Always allow them to correct you because you could be wrong. You can be like, this is your insecurity. And they're like, actually, that's not it at all. Screw you for that assessment.
Fuck you, bitch.
Just like, this is what I'm kind of noticing, and this is why I'm thinking that this is the case here. And then just let them have that dialogue with you of like, yeah, maybe I was feeling that when you brought up wanting to see other people, that meant that I wasn't good enough for you, that wasn't worthy enough for you, that touched on some part of me that feels not enough. Great. Now you can have a really great conversation about that. But you just have to let them have the space to like meet you. And you're like, I'm going to offer that I think this might be the thing. Do you want to accept that offer? If the answer is no, then like, don't touch it.
What if they're not willing to like if you are able to kind of like be like, hey, I think it's this, and they're like, no, I don't think it's that, but they don't have necessarily a reason to, you know what I mean? Like they're just like, no, I don't think that's it, but it actually really is. Like you're
not their therapist. That's not your job.
And this reminds me of when I was with my ex for 2 years, not my ex-fiance, the guy that came after that, the ex-dom.
Oh yeah.
There were so many times where like his ego was just shining through, and Nikki would always point it out. She'd be like, that's his ego. So then like he and I would get in fights, and I'd be like, well, Nicole was saying that's your ego.
Oh well, gee,
just like offload the blame.
And
I'm sure that didn't help his relationship with her.
It didn't. We had a very strained relationship.
I wonder why.
Terrible relationship.
We had a very strained relationship.
But I will say, like,
but I did think he was a great guy.
A year later, when he and I were breaking up and we were having like one of our last discussions, he was like, you were right. I was a lot of my ego had to be worked through, in order for me. And, it took me a long time. He's like, but I finally saw it.
Mm-hmm. That is actually similar to the breadcrumbing, what I kind of call like planting seeds, especially with ego stuff. People don't just be like, yep, you nailed it. Like, I accept that. Thank you for pointing it out. Because if that was the case, they've probably already done a lot of work. You have to recognize that when you bring these things up to people and you do it slowly and gently, that like people will come to terms in their own time. So like you can offer it, and if they're saying, nope, that's not it, but I don't know why, you're like, cool. Let me know if you get like greater insight to then what it might be if it is not that. And then you just leave it because they need to take their own time in getting to that conclusion. Maybe it's obvious for you, but it just might not be obvious for them. Or maybe it is, and they just don't want to deal with the fact that it's obvious to them.
I mean, because I definitely see like where people like ask us like, okay, hey, I brought this up, and they're like, no, I don't want to do it because this isn't this. And, like they'll basically paint the picture where it sounds like maybe their partner is dealing with an insecurity or something like ego related to like whatever they brought up. And usually, yeah, like I'll flat out point it to them. But then like when you brought all this up, then I realized I'm like, sure, like this is what I tell people, like, oh, that's probably their ego. But like, how do you present that to your partner? Because in the past, I've really struggled to tell people like, I think it's your ego, or I think it's your insecurities, or I think this is like something you need to work on and not my problem. Mm-hmm. I had that happen with a partner where it's like he got upset every single time that like, even though like he knew I was non-monogamous and he knew I was, like who I was and that I have multiple dynamics and that I have other people that I sleep with, etc. And I understood that like he was brand new to it. So, it was going to require time. But, for example, there would be times where it's like I would like have a threesome or something and he'd get upset and, and I'd be like, well, like I understood that he got upset because like it brought up a lot of insecurities for him. But at the same time, I was like, there's nothing like he had a whole list of like what I should do after a threesome to like make him feel better about it. And that really pissed me off. But I just remember like I read this list and I'm like, these are all ego insecurities. So it's like, how do I, and I didn't know how to, other than like go through each one of them and be like, no, I'm not doing this because like I don't need to validate or justify my actions to someone just for, you know, sating their like insecurities. But like, I remember that was a really hard conversation because I was like, I don't know how to point this out to someone. And then at the same time, it's like, you know, kind of like what you said, you have to let them come to that kind of conclusion on their own with time. But yeah, it's hard to like say that and then, you know, you don't know when at one point they're going to be like, okay, I actually figured it out on you.
Or if ever.
Yeah. Or if ever.
There's no
4 years
guarantee.
later.
Or if ever. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But also, like, I think part of like being in a partnership with someone, whether it's casual or whatever, is recognizing that you might need to hold space for their insecurities and their ego. And you might need to, within reason, give them some reassurance. Like, I don't know what was on his post-threesome affirmation list. But like some of that probably could have been reasonable and something that maybe, you know, you would have been happy to do. If it's like, you know, really long and don't do the thing, then that's a little controlling. But yeah, we are all working through things. And part of being in a partnership with someone is supporting that growth and being along the ride for it, even when it's not like all worked out yet.
I agree. You do have to like find where you are willing to like give them some affirmation and like where you can kind of meet them in the middle on that. There were definitely some requests on that list though where I was like, no, I don't need to do this to justify it. But at the same time, like I looked at that list and I was like, this just doesn't make it worth it to me. And like it just didn't make it. But I, you know, and the relationship eventually did end, but for a variety of reasons. But you know, I do think it was kind of like an eye-opening moment for me of like what I am and am not willing to do for someone, like when it comes to helping in kind of dealing with those issues. Because like you face them a lot in non-monogamy, and you face them a lot in partnerships in general, you know, so it's like you got to figure out like what you are and are not willing to do to like help someone overcome it.
I had a listener who she sent me a question because she's, I guess, entering a dynamic where the guy has another sub and he wants her to be his other sub or new sub, whatever. Anyways, and she was like, well, you know, some of the questions that I ask myself, I'm like, you know, if he sees her more often than me, like, what do I mean to him, blah, blah, blah. And I'm, you know, and I looked at those questions and I was like, well, and I didn't know how to say it, but I just said it. I was like, that's your ego. And like, and I told her, I was like, you know, you really have to ask yourself some of the questions, like, okay, if he goes to see her, like, if you're, or here's a better example. I was like, you know, if you're worried about how much time he's spending with her compared to you, but you're getting what you want out of your time together, like, why does it matter? You know, so I was trying to give her like examples of maybe how to work through that ego and just a sense of like, okay, you know, are you getting what you want out of this relationship? You know that it's a poly structure. How you're going to have to come to accept some things if you want this to work. Otherwise, like, you know, especially if there is an incompatibility in how much time he's giving you and you don't think it's enough and, you know, you want more and he can't give that to you, you know, then step away. But otherwise, it's like you're just going to, because like when I got into my relationship with my boyfriend, a lot of the inner work that I had to do with my ego was just being like, I'm good as I am with him and I get what I want. So what he, you know, outside of that, the other relationships that he has, like, it doesn't, you know, like, I don't need to project my insecurities on that. That makes
Are you
sense.
saying that like because the relationship can't really, it's capped because he's already married, that like it doesn't necessarily affect the value of the relationship or you?
What? Say that again?
Oh, okay. I was trying to see if what you meant by that was that like because, you know, he's already married, so like you can't really follow the relationship structure, that like it doesn't necessarily, that the lack thereof does not affect your value in the relationship. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. It took me, my brain was like processing.
Yeah, hold on. I'm having a hard time processing this question. I mean, I think my value, especially when it comes to, you know, this poly relationship that I'm in, and I hope I portrayed this to our listener correctly when I was, you know, explaining to her, at least just like some of the inner work that I've done. But in the sense of like, when I think about my relationship with my boyfriend and the fact that he's already married, and yes, there are limitations to our relationship, yeah, I took the relationship escalator out of it, and I just,
That's what I'm saying. Removing that didn't affect your, like, the value of the relationship in your eyes.
Yeah,
Or
correct.
the value. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because I can see, and I'm like, I don't know this person's whole story. Like the time spent can make you feel like you are worth less or less valued to them, which is one option. It is also not the only option. Like because I don't want the whole like ego thing to be like work through your ego and get strong and secure in your ego. That does not mean like just be a chill girl all the time.
No, and that's true.
So like if there's like I want more time and like I have an expectation for this relationship, and if you're not able to, then I have to walk away. That's also a secure ego. It does not just mean like be cool with everything and
I think
never have be a problem.
That's
No,
a great
and it's
point.
true,
I have
and
to remind
that's-
myself that sometimes.
And that's how I see it. And that's why I'm like, I'm thinking back to like how I wrote it to her, and I hope I portrayed it correctly. But that is so true because I mean, it's never like you want to compromise what you want just to like be the chill girl. But
or like be so secure in your ego that you're absolutely unbothered by everything, because that means you're disconnected from something.
Exactly. And it's that's not how you want to be at all. But it's coming to that middle ground of like, okay, well, you can't, if you're dating a poly man in a dom sub dynamic and he has another sub, you can't just think about, oh, how well is it going with the other sub? Is there a time?
Yeah,
are
you
they
gotta
spending
remove
more
better
time
than
from the
mine?
equation?
Then,
Exactly.
yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
no, you can't think about that because that's gonna absolutely you're gonna get in your head and you're gonna, paint this picture and it's just gonna absolutely ruin it for you. Instead, just look at the value. Look at the time that you're spending with him. Is he giving you everything that you want and it's good?
There's a lot of like good relationship anarchy stuff in there. Like what is the relationship smorgasbord?
The relationship what?
Smorgasbord. I can never say that word.
Relationship what?
Smorgasbord?
What is
Are
that?
you talking about that one fair in downtown?
Yes. Well, that's the same word. It means like a cornucopia of things.
Oh.
I cannot say this word.
S'moresburg, right?
Something like that. I honestly will always whisper this under my breath because I don't think I've once said it right in my life. But it's part of relationship anarchy, not like the whole thing.
Yeah.
But there's a nice little chart. You can literally Google this, and it breaks out all of the things that can be a part of relationships, and it kind of gets you off that escalator. So you see it as like a bucket where you can pick and choose all these different things, and they all are equally valuable.
I like it.
I love
She might like some of that.
Yeah.
They really need to rename that though.
Yeah,
I really like that. But I mean, it's true, when it comes to like, I'm just thinking about this whole conversation about, telling someone that you want to try something, they say no, or, trying to tell someone their ego, all these things. It just,
They're hard conversations.
They're hard conversations. And
I also thought of the scenario where, pretty recently one of our friends, she was like, well, we had the discussion. It went well. We were both down for it. We tried it. And then afterwards he was like, never mind. I don't want to do this anymore. And she was like, now what? And I was like, she literally called me for advice. And I was like, I think we need to sit with this. And that's like a tough one too.
They said yes. So like part of them was kind of maybe open, but also then like, were they just saying yes to like placate and be nice and
and I asked her
and not be a burden?
Were there enough conversations had?
Yeah. And so like that's a tough one too, because then it's like.
But if they said yes, then I would say that there's probably a little bit of hope with some patience and like more communication.
Yeah. And that's what I was thinking too. I'm like, and that's what I told her. I'm like, I think you just need to let him work through these feelings because like he's still going to have a reaction that maybe he wasn't expecting, even if he prepared for it.
Yeah. To me, that feels like bungee jumping. Like you're excited, you go on the ledge, and then your body goes, nope. Like I was excited getting here, and now I don't want to do this.
Never mind.
It's like
maybe you just need to like reconnect to why you wanted to do that in the first place.
Yeah.
Or we're open to doing it
and have more discussions about it. But I don't know. They're not fun things. And the whole ego conversation just took me back to that scenario. And I'm like, it's just not. Yeah. Dealing with other people's emotions, like you got to figure out like what are you going to hold space for and what are you not?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, when these kind of situations arise and you got to think about like, okay, I'm good to help you here, but like, this is where you got to do some work.
Yeah. Or
This
just
is
like
where
where
I
you're
give you-
out of your element. Like, I don't know how to help you through this. And so like, please seek support
Seek therapy. Yeah.
elsewhere. Like
I
from
told
friends,
that to one of
family,
my
therapy.
I told that to one of my partners, and he was like, he said that came off as cold and calculated. Maybe I should have
that might
approached
have been in like your delivery.
I know.
How did you say it?
I have to think about it, to be honest. But I think we're running out of time. But anyways, I felt bad.
I mean,
was like,
moral of the story, just open communication, positive breadcrumbing.
Yeah, there's more communication than you think you have to. That's the one thing is people under communicate all the time. Like you should be talking a lot about a lot of things.
That's why I always say, you know, when you start a relationship, even if it like is not on either of y'all's radar, have the conversation. What happens if someone proposes a threesome at a club?
Run through fun scenarios.
Run through the scenario. Half the time, probably running through the scenarios is going to give you enough.
Like, what are your thoughts on this random thing? Like, get into people's heads because the only way you know is by having them express that to you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's like the more that you
Ask them, how often do you like to do your dishes? You know,
this is why
before you
Oh, then we can have a whole conversation on division of labor in the household.
But
I do a lot of work around that.
Cammy, you know, earlier when you were saying I overthink things, this is why. Because I have those conversations myself all the time. Like, well, what if this happens? What if this happens? What about this? Should we look at this? You know, so I like to explore myself.
In many ways.
All right. Any final pieces of advice to our listeners?
Go to therapy.
And for those of you in New York, call
And New
Danica.
Jersey. Now I'm dual licensed in New York and New Jersey.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's
so
fun.
More people. But yeah, go to therapy. Even if nothing's wrong. Absolutely. When things are not wrong, go to therapy. That is the best time to go. Makes my job so much easier if I'm not in like crisis mode trying to like see
Pick
if we can
something, yeah.
salvage something. And people are just like, we want to be here proactively. I was like, yes, I love you.
What do you think people should start with? Talking therapy or somatic therapy?
If you're super into intellectualizing, which a lot of people are, start with a talk therapist who can talk about what they do for people who intellectualize stuff. It might just be a little hard to jump to somatic therapy if you don't have like the base knowledge of like how your emotions function, and you can maybe get to somatic therapy later. If you tend to be more in tune with your emotions, you could maybe just jump to somatic.
Nice.
See, I started with a year of talk therapy before I started somatic.
Yeah, but you have to
And
have
I
a
feel like
therapist
that
who
was
like
really nice.
knows what they're doing and can actually like help you understand some of these concepts. A lot of, especially like new therapists, do a lot of the. So how do you feel about that? Like 15 times, and then people get frustrated. It's like I don't know how to move past that. So you do have to have a therapist who can like educate a little bit.
Yeah. That's what I like about my somatic therapist is that she educates me more than my talk therapist did before. Because I feel like sometimes my previous talk therapist would just listen and then she'd be like, yeah, but you didn't want that, right? And I'd just be like, can we talk a little bit more about it? You know, but
So those very soft reflections she did there.
yeah, no, she came, I did it right because with her, you know, with my first therapist, I wasn't ready to, like I needed like the baby steps, like I needed my hand held and I needed to be a little bit more like, you know, soft push. And then now my somatic therapist is like, you know.
Yeah. But also if you
Throws
are
me.
limited on supports, like if I'm thinking some of the listeners who like might not be in really liberal cities like New York or LA, any therapist, go to anyone who will just hold that space for you and allow you to explore on your own. Even if therapy is just like a sounding board for your own thoughts, it is helpful.
Yeah.
Then you may graduate into different modalities or something of therapy.
And I definitely think like you should never expect your partner to be a therapist. That's why at times like when I felt like I could only do so much to kind of like, you know, help hold space or like affirm them in certain ways, the rest I was like, go to therapy. And like I did successfully get two of my partners in therapy.
Love it.
I successfully got two of them in therapy because I'm like, look, I can only do so much. You need to finish this work. I can't do it. And the one of them is doing like leaps and bounds. Like I feel like if we had met when he like after therapy, we would have actually been in a relationship. You know, and then the other one, I have no idea how he's doing, but at least he got back into therapy because of me. And I just like, yeah, there's only so far I will go in holding space for someone and affirming until the rest I'm like, you got to get someone else to do it because I can't be your therapist.
So if you want to get with Nikki, you have to go to therapy. That's the
It's
new
honestly becoming
criteria.
kind of a criteria, and it's not a bad one.
Go to therapy.
Yeah,
A
exactly.
new jingle.
Well, Danica, thanks for joining us.
Of course, anytime.
I'm gonna send this episode for anyone when they ask us in the future. I'm like, well, you know, what do I do now? And I'm like, well, shit.
And if you're in New York, you could just book a session with me.
Book a session with Danica.
Well, apparently they got to be balling for that. So.
That is slightly fair. Yes. Yes, I'm sorry. I've worked really hard to get to this place.
Danica, no, you're worth.
Yes,
no,
thank you,
you're
thank you,
well
thank you.
deserved. Well deserved.
No, you're worth. Okay, awesome. Well, do you want to plug yourself?
You could just
Like with a
Google
butt
my
plug.
name, Danica Mitchell. That's it. I don't have socials or anything that are relevant here.
We'll put the Google link on the episode description.
Anyways, I mean, if you want to see her really cute cats, you can follow her. On
Yeah, you
Instagram.
can follow my personal Instagram. That's absolutely fine, but it's just not going to be therapy or sex
Just
related.
Cats. It's just cats.
Cats and travel mostly.
Well, let's do tarot soon.
Yes.
But anyways, you can find us at
Double Team Podcast.
.com. All
Yes.
relevant links on Instagram at Double Team Podcast or Kimmy and Nikki. We're also on Twitter.
Oh yeah, I follow like all of your accounts, so
I
I
know.
just see all of your stories
Yeah,
like
you just
4
see everything
times.
twice.
I know, because you follow our personals.
Yeah, the personals and the Cammy and Nikki and the double teamed
I
when
know.
they kind of banned you for a little bit there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We love the support. Thank you, Dean.
We
of
came
course.
back though. And of course, support us on Patreon. And if you want thirst traps and you want to pay for those, I do sell those on Sunroom. So
What is
Yeah.
sunroom?
Thanks,
It's like a
guys. Wear
soft
condoms. It's like
OnlyFans.
soft OnlyFans.
Oh, cool.
yeah, I'm not starting an OnlyFans. At least I don't foresee myself doing that. But I do have Sunroom.
We
so-
do get a lot of requests, though. People
I
are
would
like, where's
not
the
be
OnlyFans?
surprised.
And I'm like, no. Anyways.
Exactly. Buy
Wear
my customs.
condoms.
Yeah, wear condoms. Love you. Bye.
Bye.